I would like to call the meeting of the Oconee County Planning Commission for Monday, September 21st, 2020 to order, please. Ms. Lyle, if you could bless our meeting, please.
Dear Lord, we come to you today just being thankful, Lord, for everything that you have provided for us. Lord, we live in a very blessed place, Lord. Not only just in this county, but in this country, Lord. I just thank you for it, and I ask you, Lord, to help us to take care of it, help us to watch out for one another and love one another. I ask you, Lord, to help us to think of others when we're making any type of suggestions as to new regulations. I just ask, Lord, that you would help us to think of those who maybe this will impact the most, and think of all the side effects, I guess you would say. I just ask, Lord, that you would continue to give us this lovely weather that you've blessed us with these last few days. I just thank you for all of our blessings. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Mr. Bessie, would you lead us in the pledge, please, sir?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm assuming there's no sign-up sheet with public comment, so there's no public comment. We do have Mr. Smith requested he would give us an update on some things that he's learned recently. So, Mr. Smith, I'll give you the commission member comment floor.
Last time we met, we had the Habitat fella come in here and give us a wonderful presentation about what they do. And he said, how can we help him, the planning commission? And he was talking about roads. After the meeting, a couple people, we talked about it a little bit. And I found the phone number for Senator Alexander's office and whatever. And I talked to this fella, Ken Cushing, that takes care of the roads, and he's in contact with him, and he's hopeful that something can be resolved. In any case, I'll follow up on it and let you know how the road situation works out. Another item, when we talked about roads, I always kept asking the question, we have C funds, we have the state, we have ACOG. How do these groups interact with each other? Anyway, I got a hold of the chairman of the C Funds group, and he said that they work very closely with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. And ACOG, he said, not so close. They're kind of, a regional planning group, but when it comes to local areas and local issues, they work very closely with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. 25% of their money that they get goes to state road projects. And, the state tax is 24 cents a gallon. They get about 4 cents of that into the C funds. In any case, it was good to know who those people are that are on that committee, and it was good to know that they work with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. And by the way, Mike, I asked about your favorite intersection, 123 and 130, and he said that he didn't know that it was on the radar screen anywhere. I asked about another intersection, 188 and 28 over there by Bountyland, and that apparently isn't on the radar screen as far as he's concerned, but I guess that's an ACOG kind of a thing, since it's they deal with large issues like that. Anyway, that's just a little update, and I think it's good to know that these two entities are talking to each other.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to do that. I'm surprised that 28 and the Bountyland intersection is not, because do we not ask for a study
Well, we
to be
sent a
done
letter.
on that,
We sent a letter up there to the county council about it.
having to do, before they put in all those houses over there?
We don't even know where that housing project is right now.
So if I may, so in regards, as Mr. Smith said, it's complicated. There's a bunch of interactions that go over place. So the C Funds committee may not, just because on a C Funds committee radar doesn't mean it's not on DOT's
That's true.
radar,
Okay.
or I know it's on I for sure it's on ACOG's. So they all handle different, it's like healthcare. We made it very, very, involved.
Well, the way he said, you know, he will mention something and the DOT guy will say, well, that's, you know, that's something that we got on such and such a date and whatever, and then they'll go to the next topic and whatever.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you again. I hope everybody looked over the minutes. Any comments or discussion? If not, do I have a motion to approve them, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Mr. Chapman, a discussion on impact fees, and I'm assuming we have no signatures for public comment, and I don't know anything about any letters or anything, so
Excellent, all right. So,
how much more can you confuse us?
right, first, okay, Mike, let's do this. All right, council passed a resolution sending us impact fees. It is it is something that we've been tasked with, similar to the comprehensive plan, similar to anything else council asks us. Let's just first go ahead and define impact fees before we start jumping into all this stuff. The purpose of tonight's conversation is just to have a conversation. Nothing's getting voted upon. We are not going to reach into anyone's pockets tonight. This is just simply educational. Todd Stedman, who we met over at the city of Clemson when we went on a little field trip last year, probably last year, I think it was this year. Anyways, a while ago, Todd was gracious enough to share this document that he created, kind of outlining impact fees. And he does a very good job of it. So it says, an impact fee is a payment of money imposed as a condition of development to pay a proportionate share of the cost of system improvements needed to serve the people utilizing the improvements. If you're new in town, you're gonna pay a little more for new services coming online. That's the short version of that. It's a very specific thing used for a very specific purpose. Impact fees can only be used for these things here: water, sewer, solid waste, roads and bridges, stormwater, law enforcement, parks, libraries and rec, and public education facilities from K through 12. It's not general fund money. Any money collected as impact fees aren't gonna go into painting the walls in here. It's for, if we have 1,000 new homes coming online, and we know that they're gonna use $1 million worth of whatever this service is, those 1,000 people, those 1,000 new homes are gonna pay for that $1 million of new service coming online. That's their proportionate share. So that is a proportionate share. And here's all how we do the impact fee. This is the steps by which we have to create it. But the first thing we have to do is create a capital improvement plan. And what that is, it's a list of every brick and mortar building that the county operates, what its deficiencies are, and how we intend to pay to fix those deficiencies. I've got our capital improvement plan, and maybe there's an updated one, but this is the one I have. It's from 2003. There aren't that many words on the page, so it's really big. Like there's pictures and stuff, so this isn't quite as imposing a document. And this is gonna be far less bandwidth for you all. Like the comp plan, like I'm gonna go to each department head, administration, and say, okay, every building, we're starting with that. It's nothing that we're really gonna argue over, like whether Pine Street exists or not. I'm gonna provide that to y'all, and then we'll start looking at the deficiencies that it has. If we know we need another 1 million cubic feet of storage space in solid waste at the C&D landfill, that's the deficiency. We know that in 10 years, we're gonna need another 1 million cubic feet of solid waste space. That's our deficiency. And we're gonna analyze that. So that's the first step. Now, we're required to have this anyways. This is part of the ZIA, the zoning enabling ordinance. We gotta have this anyhow. So this is gonna get done. Now it's in front of us on our radar, on the YouTube. This is gonna be part of our our life for a little while, called the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan. Running parallel with that, we're gonna get some projections of population, housing coming online to see how many people we can project coming into the area. And that will drive the cost, right? If we expect 1,000 new homes coming in and we have $1 million worth of upgrades to do, 1,000 to 1 million, I'm not a mathematician, but he is. That's the impact fee essentially. So I do recommend looking at this document. Fort Mill just recently, well, January, February, they were involved in a long-standing lawsuit. The Home Builders Association sued them because the impact fees went from $2,500 to $18,000 over the course of a couple of years. And they justified it through their growth and through everything like that. They did all the steps. And a developer and some home builders, the Home Builders Association filed a lawsuit saying it was unconstitutional and whatnot. And the judge agreed with Fort Mill that whether you agree with it or not, the state said they can do this. And it was done in the proper methodology. So they do have impact fees in this. Spartanburg's actively looking at impact fees at the moment. I know Kershaw County is as well. So it's beginning to take hold. So this is, I do recommend reading this 4 pages right here. This shows what Clemson's is. Clemson's is $5,900.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
That's per house,
Yes.
no matter what size the house?
I believe they do have some differentiation here for the $20,000 we're talking about, the 18,000. Is that what you're talking about?
Uh-huh.
So 2 developers. It's 20,000 per single family dwelling, and I believe it's 12,000 or so for multifamily. But yeah, that's per dwelling. Now, this does accommodate for affordable housing, but that's a very specific affordable housing. That's just not like, hey, I can't afford this house. It's that definition of what affordable housing is. So the impact fee ordinance does speak to affordable housing being exempted out of it, to a degree. So I do recommend you reading this.
And is that when it's spent, I'm sorry if you scoot back down a little bit, when it is spent, because you have 3 years, right, to spend it, once you take it in, is it spent up as it says, wastewater impact 2,500? Is it broken down so that you're putting money into the water system, the sanitation and police system, the recreation, or does it just go into a lump sum and you put it wherever you know you need it?
I believe it has to go for what it's being required.
What it's being
for.
required,
So if
okay.
we say we collected $100,000 for wastewater, let's say roads and bridges, and we didn't spend it, we gotta return it. We have to return it
Return it,
after
yeah,
3 years.
okay.
All of these are based on projections, and projections can get a little, I guess, squishy. I mean, it's a guesstimate at best. And from what I'm reading here, we know that water and sewer and waste, whatever, are going to be impacted, but we really don't know specifically how much. We're just throwing a projection out there, an educated projection, best we can. Is that not right, Adam? I mean, it's
No,
a
for sure.
guesstimate.
Yeah, I feel it's accurate. I mean, we're gonna charge a specific amount based upon an estimated projection, yes, sir.
And I don't see that amount or dollar amount here. Did I miss something, or are we hadn't reached
No,
that
these are
point
just
yet?
examples. We're not,
Okay.
yeah, we don't have
We
to.
have to create that. And so the first part of creating that is figuring out what our needs are. Our needs will come out of this document here. And we'll say we need $1 million for emergency services. Okay, then that would be, over X number of houses divided by that equals, that's your impact.
Do we currently have a sewer tap fee like the municipalities or areas have a water tap fee?
We do not have water, sewer, or stormwater, sir, from a
So,
county perspective.
it's from a county perspective. But nobody is county water, everything is city or municipality water, is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct? Sewer, we now have as a county established entity? No?
There's Oconee County Joint Regional Sewer Authority, and it's kind of going down the roads like the healthcare and housing and whatnot. It's getting complicated. But no, the county does not have a seat at the table for the Regional Sewer Authority. We don't operate it. We don't own it. We don't have customers. Even the Joint Regional Sewer Authority doesn't have any customers. They just have infrastructure.
So, the reason I ask is because looking at these things that the code allows for, water, sewer, solid waste, roads, et cetera, water, there's a tap fee that's an initial fee that says, you want water, there's a fee, you pay for that. Sewer, we don't have any control over that, and apparently the sewer authority, I'm assuming, pays for that maintenance and upkeep of that sewer.
Yeah, that with our money.
Roads and bridges, yes, we have responsibility for. Stormwater, we will soon have responsibility for. Law enforcement, I get. Parks and libraries, that's there, but the reality is that new development, their impact on the parks and recs, at least the parks and recs that we have in the county, thus far, I would say is somewhat limited, and public education is definitely already taxed at a significant amount. I mean, that 6% does go to pay for education facilities. Can I give this out for people to look at as well? This is, so obviously I'm obviously I'm in real estate. The National Association of Realtors is extremely opposed to impact fees, or at least the way they're currently designed. I'm not saying, I do think that we need to have some sort of discussion, because if we don't, it'll come up again as to how and where it could benefit. But I will tell you that one of the big things that it does do is, as you hit on in Clemson, is we've been talking about affordable housing or workforce housing, and I will tell you very quickly, using Clemson's example, it's completely disproportionate, and it takes away that workforce housing. And let me give a quick example here. If we had a $2,500, not a $20,000, but just a $2,500 fee, if you oppose that on the developer for every lot that he sells or puts a house on, he gets charged $2,500. Well, on a $200,000 lot, that's 1%. But on a $12,000 lot, that's 20%. And all of a sudden, you see those incremental changes, and it definitely disproportionately affects that lower income housing compared to a higher dollar home. And that's one of several things that I've handed out as far as just that disappropriation is probably not the right word, but that does really show real quickly how we really need to take a careful look at this. The National Association of Realtors does go ahead and make a recommendation that for places that do have impact fees already, how those funds should be handled. One, keeping them separate from everything else, and two, that those monies be used specifically for the related or the specific need. So again, I go back to water. We already have a tap fee for water. Sewer, we're not even responsible for, so we sure can't collect money for something that we don't have a responsibility for. Stormwater, we will have some impact at some point. I don't know if we're collecting fees to cover that, or if we're just telling a developer you have to be responsible for managing that water. But it's something we need to be real careful with.
Adam, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the feasibility of this impact fees
These,
for the
like
county?
how so, sir? Like I'm sorry, how feasible is it?
For the county to do this?
So we're lawfully allowed to do it. It's a state, it's an ordinance in law. We're allowed to do it. If you mean how feasible is it for us to collect the money?
Right.
So the ordinance accounts for how we're supposed to collect it, pay it, and refund it. So, I mean, we can do that. Is there more to your question?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out if this is, a type of, something to do with zoning or land use regulations or something like that. I mean, there's a reason behind these fees. And
I think basically the way it's been explained to me is that basically it is spreading the burden for the cost of increased development to that increased development. For example, if we add 1,000 new homes in Oconee County in the next year, those 1,000 new homes are going to have an impact on our solid waste. We're going to have, more hauled out, or we're going to have, whatever. Comes of that, more litter, more manned convenience places, something like that. So the impact fees are supposed to be used to offset those costs, rather than placing the burden on all of the taxpayers by going up in taxes to pay for the increased space needed in the landfill because we have 1,000 new homes.
But again, I go back to, is this a land use regulation?
No,
or
it's
is
not.
this
It's
a
simply,
type of zoning?
it's a different
I
way
mean, it
to
sounds like zoning
fund
to me.
thing. No, it's not. Why does it
But
sound like zoning?
Is this strictly on residential?
No, it's on any kind of development, right? Any kind of
Because
development.
we've got, if we build a subdivision which doesn't have the, and I can't remember the word, but the ground covered, build a subdivision, where we build 2 QTs, we've got more surface covered up that we're gonna have the water runoff and all this stuff, but in that subdivision, we're not gonna have near the runoff from a subdivision we're gonna have from the QTs and
Well, and that's why
and
you
others, so do we charge
assess
the
the
QT more
impact,
money?
right? Yeah, the
And-
impact fees vary, correct? Based on what is the estimated impact of that development.
Yeah, so it looks like Clemson has, there's different, they use different fees for multifamily, for commercial space, and, they have different, for the size of each, how many square feet they hold. So, I think the easiest way, I think, to look at it is, we're not necessarily there yet, but in the lower part of the state, when you have like near Summerville, South Carolina, where there may be the development is really coming in, and the schools can't keep up with that growth. So they may have a school that's, full, they keep building neighborhoods around it. Well, that school's full, then they have to immediately go out and build another school for people that have just moved into the area. So I think, in those type of situations, you can see the impact that they have to deal with.
But is this just another way to control what comes in the county or?
It's just
Something
it's a way for them to not say we're raising your taxes and raise everybody's taxes. Instead, they're just gonna put this fee on the new people.
Yeah, they're just.
But it disproportionately affects lower income housing, where if you just raise the tax, it will affect the higher property values more than it affects the lower property values. This is a burden on the lower income people that are trying to come in, because the same fee will be on a $200,000 house as it is on a $100,000 house, or a $2 million house as it is a $100,000 house. I don't like that.
I would think that you would need some kind of sliding, something, do you have an example of that, or are they always the same?
So every state's different. In South Carolina, this is brand new for South Carolina. Really, I think it's essentially brand new for South Carolina. The ordinance, was only put into place, and I want to say Fort Mill is the first, this was 2008 when this was put in place. I think Fort Mill was just the first one to do it, and that was that was 2 years ago, and they just this year.
Because like
have
this,
unlitigated.
this example here, recreation sanitation police, is 24 cents a square foot. So that if you've got a smaller home, you pay less of an impact fee than you would if you have a large home. Just guessing.
So, can I ask a question and then make another statement with this? Residential property tax is assessed what, Adam? It's required every 8 years? They can do it every 4 years? What's the,
Oh, I'm not sure, but I thought they did it every 4 years, but maybe it's 8.
so 4 years? Every 4 years, there's a new assessment. So here's the thing. Developer comes in, using Clemson's example of $20,000. A developer comes in, he builds 15 lots. He says, I'm going to sell them for $30,000 a piece. Whoops, nope, I'm going to sell them for $50,000 a piece now because I'm not going to take that cost and make less profit. As a developer, I'm going to pass that along to the consumer. They now build a house, and this stretch of 18 homes or whatever it is now is X dollars in price. We talk about it not impacting the existing home, but it does, because now all of a sudden, within 4 years, everybody's home in that area goes up because this guy's home had to go up by $20,000 on these 18 homes. Now the surrounding homes are also going to be elevated in value. Now, it may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing, but it's something that we need to be considering. That it's not just the new guy that pays the tab, it's everybody around the new guy that now additionally pays the tab as well.
Which is already what happens in agriculture, because when you put in a subdivision in an agricultural area, the value of the land goes up,
Goes up.
so our taxes go up.
Right.
So,
So that's one issue. The other issue is that we go back to that workforce housing, and I keep trying to get away from using the term affordable housing and go to workforce housing, because that's really where it's really impacting a lot of this, not just an extremely low income home. That oftentimes that developer, he's charging the extra, he's passing that cost along to the buyer, who now buys a product over a 30-year term. So it's really not a $20,000 impact fee. It's a $60,000 impact fee over the term of a 30-year loan that they've financed in to the purchase of this property. So there's a lot more that's actually going here, working pieces that, again, we just need to make sure we're aware of all the things that go into it so that we can, we don't want this to simply be a way to collect taxes without admitting you're collecting taxes. It needs to truly, like you said, if we're having to build extra schools, then we need to figure out how to deal with having to build extra schools. Is it that we're setting money aside and getting prepared for that? Or do we have an impact fee that says specifically, we're going to put this in the kitty for schools because here's where the growth is going to be. But we really need to watch this because there's a lot of hidden factors that at play as well.
And we don't need to do this just to bail out bad spending by the county. If the county hasn't been spending the money that they've been collecting well, then we don't need additional fees to bail out something that they should have been planning for all along.
I don't think that's, I don't get that at all.
If there is a need to collect fees in advance, then we need to figure out how to collect fees in advance of growth. I do look at some of these and there are already fees collected or we're not responsible already unless we take over the sewer system, for example. But whether it be schools, whether it be road conditions, I mean, we say, okay, we're collecting for roads, but the development was off of a state road, not a county road. So, the impact may be nominal, if at all. So we just need to make sure that we're looking at all the components.
So Adam, how would we go about determining what the added cost of the proportionate share for each improvement is?
So the first step is to create the CIP, the capital improvement plan. That's every brick and mortar structure. And that's now it doesn't say we just need a capital improvement plan for just the things that we're allowed to charge impact fees for. It says we need a capital improvement plan, which means while the state ordinance says we can collect it for water, stormwater, all this stuff, I still need a complete capital improvement plan that talks about the airport and the rock quarry and Pine Street and whatnot. So that's really the first step is what I'm gonna start working on. I'm not gonna bring up every time. I'll probably give it to you all either in bite-sized chunks once I complete a piece. And then we're gonna look at the deficiencies. And I believe that'll probably need more staff level and seeing, all right, well, we've been running short, or this building has 20 people in it, and was only designed for 8 people, that 12-person deficiency, and how much will that cost to do an addition for those 12 people? So whatever that cost is upcoming that we think we're gonna project for, that will be divided by what we'll get some kind of number projection based upon there's companies that go out and do projections for population, for housing and things like that, and we'll take that number and we'll divide it into what we see our deficiencies are in these specific areas. And now, we're not required to charge, like, just because we can charge all these fees, we don't have to. We can say, you know what, our parks, we really need to focus on our parks. And we can just charge a park impact fee on there. We're not required to do all of them. Although, I haven't seen an impact fee where they don't go all out. And they're like, well, we're already here, so keep charging. So, that's how we would determine proportionate share, at least South Carolina.
How many counties in South Carolina have an impact fee? Do you know?
I think Fort Mill, I think Kershaw County, but Kershaw had to give all their money back because they had a paperwork issue. They had it, and they had to return the money because they didn't follow it got in the paperwork, there's a very specific set of steps to follow. They didn't do a public hearing, so they had to return and go back to it. So actively, I think there's one.
I think Anderson and Easley are discussing it in their county meetings this month. Be interesting to see what comes about there.
And it was because Fort Mill the lawsuit that came up with Fort Mill, the counties were, I don't think they came into our conversation with it, but I know a couple other areas conversation, waiting for that lawsuit to be hashed out to see, all right, are we gonna do this or not? So, the first step is, because we were tasked with it, and this won't be anything we're gonna do quickly, because this will take Vivian and I, a solid couple months to put together accurately and precisely, and for us to go over it, it'll take us some time. So that'll be the first step.
The one last thing I think that we need to make sure that we're considering when talking about all this is, from a residential standpoint, a developer is not going to accept the burden of that cost. It's 100%. They're going to pass that cost to the next guy. Commercial's going to do the same. Could commercial withstand that impact more, or do they have an impact on our particular needs more? I don't know. I'm just saying these are questions. Does commercial have an impact on the libraries? Probably not. That's probably going to be more of a residential side impact. But just understand that if we impact that developer, he's going to pass the cost along to the buyer. That buyer's paying more for that product, which means the guy across the street's now, his taxes will eventually go up. And ultimately, all this is paid for by taxes. Or some kind of fees. Again, sewer is not something that we do. And municipalities do water. So, again, lots of moving parts we just need to make sure we're looking at as we're going through it.
And this could stifle growth of business in our county as well. If Pickens doesn't have an impact fee and they can choose here or there and it's a $50,000 difference, why would you not choose to go to Pickens?
Sure.
What does the county council specifically want from us?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'll pull the resolution here. Want us to return to them with.
Don't read us something that David Root wrote. Just
Well, that's
tell
what
us
might
in plain
happen.
English.
I'm not gonna go all freestyle on it, I promise. We're gonna come back to them. Hold on. So they passed, here, I just read it through. Yep. The governing body of a governmental entity process begins the process for adoption of an ordinance by directing the local planning commission to conduct the studies and to recommend an impact fee ordinance developed in accordance with this.
So basically, right now, what we need to do is we need a motion and a second and a vote to instruct you to follow up on this compilation of information about this capital improvement plan and bring it back to us.
So,
Correct.
I will. I didn't put a vote on here on purpose on the agenda, very specifically, because I thought that we should just discuss it today. That way there's not any stress here that we've had this meeting, at the next meeting, and I'm already gonna start it, just by the way, you all have to, but I mean, yes, instructing staff to do it. I just wanted to have this conversation first, that way there wasn't any sort of thought coming into this that we were gonna start having impact fee today. This was just meant as a little round table conversation as to what we're doing. And that way you all can formulate any additional questions you have for the next meeting. And if you have any, thoughts, shining moments for the next meeting. So I'm gonna start this anyhow. We're already gonna start doing the groundwork for it. And then at the next meeting, you all can give us a directive for it. Unless you all want to amend the agenda tonight and put the voting on there.
No,
No, I'm good. If you're okay with going ahead without our instruction, certainly, we're good. Any other comments or questions? Just, this will be a future thing hanging over our head, so. All right. The Agricultural Advisory Board, I think Mr. Chapman has some information for us on that.
Sure.
They did a cool thing recently.
So, right now, if you buy a house in South Carolina, and I'm sure Mr. Johnson can speak to this more, is that you sign a lead paint disclosure, an asbestos disclosure statement when you buy the house. Okay, this house does not have lead in it, kind of thing. Several other states, New York, California, some of the breadbasket states, have an agricultural disclosure, which means along with that lead-based paint disclosure, along with that asbestos disclosure, they get an agricultural disclosure saying you're moving in next to a agricultural use. It's not a tax, it's not an additional regulation, it's just notification. You're being notified, and this buyer beware, you are being notified that you are moving in next to an agricultural or forestry use that may have sight, sound, smells, noises, what have you, with ag. And so the ag board voted to send a letter to council, asking them to send a letter to delegation to ask them to include that in real estate purchases. It's state law, the LLR is. So that's what the ag board has done. Has asked council voted on it unanimously to send it to delegation, and delegation will then have to find a way to put it into motion.
Any comment or discussion? It's designed basically to protect the farmers that have been there for 40 or 50 or 100 or however long it is, or 2 years, and have a significant investment in their business from being assaulted by someone who moves in at a later date or a more recent date and then complains about what is there or what is going on, as has recently happened in a number of places.
I will say one thing just for us to consider and think about. So yes, there's a state required, actually a federal required lead-based paint. There's a state required state property disclosure of condition, as well as an association disclosure saying that you're in an HOA. Both of those things have some basis behind them. The real estate agent can't fill that form out. It has to be filled out by the property owner. So the question becomes is if the developer now, where does he get his information that the next door is an agriculture? Is it going to be based on a zoning designation? At which point we're going to have to visit in order to protect yourself. There's a zoning mechanism that takes place, or is it simply by the developer saying, it doesn't smell like chicken poop, so we're good, and he doesn't check that box. So we'll want to look and see how the state defines this and sets it up.
I was gonna say, that'll be up to some farm folks, like Farm Bureau, et cetera, to stay on that, to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do as the law goes through, I believe.
It may come down to permits too, like we have to have a permit to operate our farm. So it may be someone that has a permit versus a backyard farm,
Right.
a commercial
As far as that
type
protection.
entity, yeah.
I think the goal is to make it a use. Simply, I don't think they're looking for permits, I think, because you do have small backyard farmers that don't have permits that still have the right there to farm. So they're
If it
looking.
were up to me, and like we had started to toy around with some, at the Ag Board, started to toy around with some of the language, but then we kind of made the decision, like, by the time we send anything anywhere, they're gonna be, thanks, great, we're gonna do it ourselves. So we did send some, like, New York does a really good one. They have a lot of, you don't normally, at least I don't normally associate agriculture in New York State, but they have a very large agricultural concerns up there. California obviously has a lot of ag as well. So when we were talking about it, taxation, at least in South Carolina, may be a way to go about it as well, is if you tax ag next to it. Which, there's a lot of ag land in this area, but that's really not, it's kind of the toothpaste is out of the tube. We've put it out there, and the direction that they choose to go, I think as Ms. McPhail said, Farm Bureau may pick up the mantle, or other farmers or farm groups may try to help craft that legislation, but it would impact the entire state of South Carolina. And that's kind of the neat thing, is that it won't just be for Oconee County, is that if something does go into action, this government will have impacted the entire state for agriculture, which is kind of neat.
All right, thank you, sir. Comprehensive plan items for annual evaluation. Again, we have no citizens signed up for comments, so, Mr. Chapman, if you would guide us in this.
Sure.
I love this timeframe and evaluation thing.
Sure, so I did do another handout, that's in addition to what the backup, it's got a bunch of underlined stuff and bullet points on the front there. Mr. Smith at the last meeting mentioned maybe we should vote on this to send to council. So what I did was I took our little blurbs that we were discussing and I just underlined them. Action taken. We went over several of them last go round. And then I got some more information from our emergency services, from parks, things of that nature. And these aren't anything that we have done as a planning commission, we are simply aggregating the information here. And so for annual review stuff, these are things just like number 10, continue to conduct regular updates to the county disaster preparedness plan. I spoke with Chief Prime, he said each year we update portions of our emergency operation plan. This year we did a crosswalk to nuclear response portion and identified. So these are little snippets of what the county has accomplished. There's a couple that I haven't been able to find where we did something with, but it doesn't mean it wasn't integrated in something else. Number 12, reduce the high school dropout rate. I think this year will be a bellwether, or actually I guess next spring, will be a bellwether to see what that looks like. And I definitely think along with affordable housing and homelessness, that's something we should keep an eye on, is reduce the high school dropout rate, because if you look at any articles, I no one's had any time to study the science on it, or the numbers on it, but it seems like the high school dropout rate would increase by people either not being pushed to do their online school, people having to drop out of school to work because the parents are out of work, or just not being able to thrive in a virtual online distance learning environment. So there's a lot of alerts out for an increased dropout rate. That's something for us to pay attention to over time. And then, what was the one other one, I think? Oh, yeah, public transportation. I did not get in touch with Cap's office, that's not their fault, that's mine. Other than that, the county's been, you've thrown through the tornado, through the enter disaster here, the county's been kind of rolling along. So these are the 25 items for annual review, the 2 for 2020, what we've accomplished. Part of what the county's accomplished, not in totality.
And you'll turn this into council, or is this still something that we want to do? Make sure that they're notified?
If you all want to, I thought it was a good idea last week, then, you gotta celebrate your wins, right? I mean, it's hard to, Notre Dame's not brought up, so I would think that if you all wanted to vote on this, and one of you take it to the next council, or whatever council meeting this goes to say, hey, we've been busy this year, even though you don't see it, here you go, here's a handful of things, 26 things that we've done. So, if that's what you all care.
I think that would be great to get on public record, council.
Mr. Pearson, would you be interested or willing to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody else want to volunteer, or willing to? All right. Do we need a vote, or?
You'll
all
need
right.
a motion and a vote, for sure, a motion, second, and a vote. That's correct.
All right, I'd like to have a motion that we have this timeframe evaluation of the annual items, strategies on the comprehensive plan to be presented to council at the earliest possible convenience.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And we can take a volunteer?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
whoever wants to,
right.
volunteer.
Mr. Pearson has volunteered
Yeah.
graciously. So,
If you get sick, I'll back you up, okay?
all right, there we go.
Me and Mike.
Thank you, thank you.
Anyways.
Comprehensive plan items for ongoing evaluation, I believe that's the yellow highlighted things in the back of our, backup material.
Right, so I don't think we have to go through each of these line by line, unless y'all want to, I'm down for it. If y'all want to. So what I'm thinking that we do, and this is kind of not too dissimilar from the impact fees, is that, here it is, you all start looking at it, okay? You all start chewing on it. Some of this stuff is low hanging fruit. One of them's like, update our GIS. Yep, we're doing that, no problem, check. Some of them are maybe looking back on the year 2020 are things that we need to push into. So what I'd like to recommend is that you all have it in front of you, you have it printed out. Look at the ones that are ongoing. Look at them and say, yeah, all right, this is going on. Oh, wait, hey, this is something that is relevant to today's time and place. And maybe we look at, see what we can do with that. And also come back with some suggestions. Don't say, oh yeah, that's something we need to do. Well, what is that thing? So that is the ongoing one. That's not my question.
Well, let me be the first one to start the discussion on, just right there on page 1, I actually went through these. 2.1.2.3, develop opportunities to provide or encourage entertainment and recreational options that are attractive to young adults and families. The number one item that we got from feedback from the citizens that went to any of these meetings that we had was, what do you do? We need to continue to focus on trying to expand options for families to do, or young people to do, or even old people like me. We'd like something to do. Television is terrible now, so we just need to keep an eye on this and keep trying to be aware that we need to be looking around for these things. Frankie, I think you'd come up with splash pads for young children.
Water park.
Concrete splash pad. You just recycle the water, shoot it up in the air, and the kids run around in there and have a big time. And maybe the old people walk around in there too.
Well, it gives the old people a place to take their grandkids too.
Yeah, need to get them out. But anyway, we just need something to stay aware of that. That was the number one.
There were also, as I read through these, a couple of places where I kind of felt like we could have merged a strategy with another strategy so that we had a few less strategies to worry about
Sure.
in the first place. Can we bring those back too?
If you want to work on amending the comp plan, we can certainly.
I mean, that would be for, yeah, the future, but
If we have a group of them, what I think is go through it again and let's look at it and maybe reassess not just for space, but also for time. You know, it's 2020, if we were doing the comp plan in 2020, what would it say? What would some of the goals and strategies other than let's get back to normal be? And so that could also be another option. And I'd like to bring up, since we're in October, well, we'll be in October when we meet next, let's start looking at the 2021 goals. and see what we can stage, what we can start looking at. If there's any kind of low-hanging fruit, things of that nature. But if you all would be interested in doing it for the next meeting is ongoing. Look at them, circle a couple, see what that means to you, see how we can, how it plays into some of our goals and objectives and strategies and things of that nature.
Any questions, comments?
Let me just make a comment. Turn to page 17. Look through there. We had a big meeting about greenway systems, and this is part of what do we do? Let's not lose sight of that. And you look at objective 6.2.3, and this greenway system was a big hit, and we had a big meeting. Over 125 people were there. I can't remember, 6 or 8 months ago. It was a wonderful meeting, and we didn't seem to, haven't moved after that towards a greenway system. And
Wasn't all that supposed to tie into the bicycle park and try to
Yeah.
do something similar so that we connect to Seneca too?
Yeah,
And there was something we use in the utility right-of-ways
Yeah, the right
or
of ways
something.
from the power lines.
well, somebody has suggested going up Highway 11 because it doesn't have as much, I guess, development along it, that would really be perhaps the easiest way to approach it. But all I'm saying is, this is something that would help with what do people do? And what a big success it was over there in the Greenville area. Anyway,
Yeah, we've gone to the one in Easley
yeah,
quite a few times. I don't remember the name of
The
it.
doodle.
Yeah, the Doodle Trail.
Coffee Road would be a perfect
It's
place
really
for a
nice.
bike lane. We already have
Speaking
one.
about the one, since we're on this and it's all integrated, I did have a meeting today with a group of trying to cost out some of those from the 123 corridor plan that we all did now going on 2 years ago. Doesn't that feel like a long time? I think it was 1 year ago. Was it 1 year?
1 year ago.
It was more than a year ago. It was before the comp
That was
plan.
2 years ago.
Yeah, to price out, to actually get hard numbers for some of the infrastructure improvements and to try to get a little stability on what those policy recommendations are. So we are looking at those. You'll see those hopefully within a month or two. I can bring you something regarding that corridor plan, the 123 one, because and hard numbers as to what that bike lane looks like, what that the infrastructure, the hard surfaces look like.
Right. Any other questions, comments, or discussions for the good of the cause? Mr. Chapman, is there anything else that you need us to work on other than, can I go ahead and recommend for the minutes that we correct the numbering on this column of this? We have 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, and 9 for our agenda. Just,
I'm the metric system, so I apologize.
there, okay.
Y'all just look at the ongoing stuff and come back, maybe next meeting, and kind of have we have a conversation.
Just as on the side note, we had the food summit, and we've just now gotten around to getting a letter from the organizers of that, and they've also confessed to the same thing. Had a great meeting, great breakout sessions, huge number of people in attendance, and since then, right after that, tornado struck, virus struck, and all the committees have sort of gone, yeah, well, okay. So maybe once we can all get back together and actually have some meetings and discuss things without being on Zoom or gassing ourselves to death with the carbon dioxide, things will pick back up, hopefully.
Can
All
I go back to impact fees for just a moment? I was reading over the conclusion, and you said that you're going to do capital needs of like what we need right now? Is that what you're doing? The assessment?
So part of it will be current deficiencies.
Uh-huh.
Right, like right now, like as of right now, no new house coming in, right now, we needed 10 more chairs in here. We're at that, but then also we're gonna say, okay, if we're getting 1,000 new people here, 1,000 new homes here, we're gonna need 20 more chairs.
Okay.
So the impact fee wouldn't be for those first 10 chairs, it would be for the second 20 chairs.
Right, because I read that and it said anything that has to be done pre-development, that already needs done pre-development, that money cannot be used for that.
That's right.
So it could not be used for our horrible roads because they're that bad already,
Right,
Unless-
however, if those,
unless it's already been
Unless-
improved.
Well, unless you add those extra X number of traffic on there, and it's at this level, and then it goes up to this level, but that money can't be used to correct it down here. We should have done that before.
Right.
It can make worse bad, but it can't make bad good, I guess is what
Yeah,
it can bring it back up to the poor shape that it's already in, but.
you are correct, if it's an existing issue, it's an existing issue, that's on us.
such a,
But if we know that they're going to bring in 1,000 new, so back down the calculation is 9 trips per day per house. So if someone putting in 100 new houses, that's 900 trips per day. If that 900 trips pushes it to a different threshold, different level of service, that's that cost, that's an associated cost to it.
I think it could get I can see how they got messed up with their money, because if they paid for anything that was pre-existing out of that funds, then that money's got to be refunded.
yeah, you can't.
That
do
could get
yeah.
very tricky.
And it's new too, so this is a brave new world we're walking into.
Yeah.
At least in South Carolina.
All
In
right,
fact, in St. Johns County, Florida, or St. Augustine is, it's up to $20,000 a new home. And I think it's anything over 2,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet.
But it doesn't affect anything under?
No, it's a sliding scale upwards. I think the baseline's 10 grand.
Can we set it any way we want it? Like where it doesn't affect those low? Like individual building a home that's
I think
a low
I
house?
think their square footage, I think it has to be equitably associated. So I think I don't think we can say you don't have to unless it's affordable in a very defined way. And also, if we're only looking at houses, let's just say we're only looking at houses that are over 2,500 square feet. Let's just, for conversation's sake, let's say that. How much money could we actually, would it be worth it to do it? Because even though we do have quite a bit of large houses built, we have plenty that are tiny. Would it be feasible for us? And is that what you're talking about, Mr. Pearson?
Something to that effect, yes.
That, would it be even, I mean, if we're gonna make $100,000 over 3 years, is it, not to poo-poo $100,000, but for the sake of building anything brick and mortar, is that is it gonna be, is all of this worthwhile, to leave out all of it? So I don't know if
If
that's.
we do it for one, we have to do it for all.
And this is, and I'll get some more clarification on it if we can leave out certain portions, although the exemptions are pretty clear, and they don't necessarily say you'd be exempt from it to a low end,
I think you could make a sliding scale so that affordable meant affordable, whether it was the house or the impact fee or whatever, you keep it, surely, that's gotta be where you can make a sliding scale. I think it probably has more to do with how many of something. Like, 2 or 3 small homes is not gonna have the impact that 250 are gonna have. Like the one they were talking about out there in Bountyland, where we were so concerned about the intersection and the roads. That would obviously need an impact fee. Because we should have fixed the roads a long time ago, now, how they would work that out. But if they're gonna end up having to like buy land, so they put in additional lanes, I would think the impact fees could go to that use, so that you could widen roads. If you have a large amount of,
Oh, yeah, I mean, it could be used
That's
for road
fine.
improvements, for sure.
yeah, so
We do road improvements.
you couldn't fix it, but you could widen it or make.
So is there a way to make it where it's only for developments and not just somebody that is building a house? I mean, that one house is not really making a difference, like out in the rural community, out on Highway 11, if you build one house, that house is really not affecting anything
Yeah, but if
compared
there's
to
100 people
100
that build one house.
houses in one's place.
Well, so everything, so outside of the roads, which that is a valid point there. But outside of the roads would impact all the same things equally, emergency services, fire, solid waste. It would, that one house in or out of a subdivision would impact the same way. Now, roads, that would be different. I agree that roads, if one house impacts less than, multiple houses. I'm not against looking at that. I think we leave everything on the table right now. If it's an idea you all have, then I think we put it on the table and we see. So I'll certainly try to find some information if we can leave out lower end houses. I don't know necessarily what's the question you asked about it being feasible? Is it feasible to do it?
Is it feasible for the county to collect the money in the time that's allotted to collect and use the money in the same time period? But I don't understand if this is something that the county necessarily needs at this particular time. I don't think we need impact fees, but.
You know they're gonna use the money if they get it, so, you know, it's a matter of, I think the question is gonna be, do we have enough new residents moving into Oconee County that have an impact on the existing residents enough
this
to
could
where they
also-
need to pay an additional fee
To
to
me,
make up
this,
for
this
that?
also could go into, well, we don't want, lack of better choices, we don't want this strip joint here, so we're gonna charge an impact fee to them that's tremendous, where they don't come into county. To me, it's going into, it could go into a situation where we have these fees that keep people out and only let certain people in.
I don't think that's the way it's designed at all, because a strip
It
joint,
hasn't
if
been
there's,
done that way.
they're gonna have the same impact as a restaurant, just because they're doing something different in the thing. I mean, I don't think you could justify the purpose of the business on their impact fee. I mean, if they have 500 customers a night and this restaurant has 500, there's that much waste, paper, plate, washing, dish stuff running, all that sort, and that's all gonna be the same impact. So it's not a moral judgment, it's a.
Well, I was just using that as an example, but just anything this could turn into, or I hope it don't come into a type of zoning situation or land use management where we're telling certain businesses, or we want to charge certain things, to keep certain things out of the county and let other things in.
Yes, sir.
If I may, to clarify, Mr. Pearson, so I believe Ms. Lyles and you all mentioned that impact fees could keep out, like you said, proportionate share, like if 20%, $2,500 on a $1 million house and $2,500 on a $10,000 or a $15,000 mobile home is very different ballpark. A Walmart, if they want to be in an area, they're not going to flinch. They've got the pockets. If it's $1 million impact fee, like, where do I have to check to? If we're going to say that it's, for conversation's sake, a $5,000 impact fee, Walmart, QT, any brand name store won't flinch at that impact fee. But I think you mentioned earlier with different businesses would move if it'd be equal elsewhere. So for smaller businesses, startups, things of that nature, it could impact. I don't know if it's so much of a zoning issue, but it could definitely, if you knew that this county it's this much and the next county it's a different price, I'm sure, we have a lot of great attributes that causes growth here. So if somebody said, okay, I can make that here, sure. Can I say it won't drive anyone away? I can't say that unequivocally, but a lot of places throughout the country have impact fees that they do use successfully for product. There is a good side to this. There is, if the solid waste facilities get upgraded, if the roads get upgraded, if the emergency services, our insurance levels go down, that's good for everyone. So could it be used for a good cause? I think it could be. Could it be misused? Certainly. But there's pretty good accounting here, and there's a lot of eyes on it. So
The only thing that concerned me would be the 3-year deal, because some, like, for example, the big housing complex of students, didn't it go almost 3 years before it was completed?
Right, and I think that's,
So can they do what needs to be done within that 3 years if it's a huge development? That'd be my only concern, but I think that would have to be stipulated in, you know, how it's gonna be used and make sure it's in the timeframe, but. Are we good? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, right here.